All right, let's talk about Football Manager then. So, obviously, Gamers versus Depression, we are a service for gamers fundamentally to reach out if they're struggling with their mental health. Football Manager is often described by players, by gamers, as kind of a form of therapy. Myself, I've written about this, that during my own kind of experiences, I find that Football Manager is just a great escape, that you can kind of immerse yourself into your fantasy world for a couple of hours, let your brain do its thing, kind of catch up, and then come out feeling refreshed.
Doing my own admin, and here I am spending hours and hours and days of my life simulating somebody else's administrative duties, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm guessing that none of you would spend hours and hours and days playing a video game called Office Manager if one was out. Where you're in charge of a small independent office, and you've got to restock staplers and maintain photocopiers and then negotiate Brenda's pay rise because there's been a little news item comes through that she's been making noises about wanting a new challenge and DHL have been sniffing around. Think the best we could all hope for an office manager is getting a wonder kid who's a little work experience lad dubbed the new Bill Gates. That's the best we could hope for.
What's your view on this idea of you probably got a different perspective given the amount of time you have to spend playing Football Manager. What do you feel around this idea of Football Manager as a kind of therapeutic enterprise, I guess?
It's just games in general. I mean, it is escapism, plain and simple, right? It is, you are going to focus on this thing that has no discernible value in your real life, right? On the surface.
Yeah.
And use it to get out of whatever is going on. A lot of people that you find actually become incredible gamers did not have particularly easy childhoods, and that is why they ended up putting the amount of time that they did into games, because they were escaping it. And I'm talking more generally about games because I think Football Manager is just a particular type of game that appeals to a particular type of person. Doesn't make you better or worse than any other person that likes to play anything from Animal Crossing to Call of Duty to get out of whatever real world situation that you're in. You just find a game that works for your brain, and then obviously the more time you put into it, the better you get at it, and so you just kind of get rabbit holed into, this is the game that I want to play when I want to feel this thing. I do think Football Manager does. It does a particularly good job of providing a rewarding feeling. You really have to earn it, and it can also beat you up, which has the exact opposite of the intended effect. And I'll just be angry in real life because I just got screwed and whatever. But it can provide the highs as well. And that's where saying something like it has no effect in real life is wrong, because my mood in real life will often be determined by how the team is doing. Yeah, we
got Football Manager fans in? There we are. A few single lads knocking about. It's not a game that keeps a relationship together, is it, that? My wife hates it. Sometimes I'll wait for her to drop off. I'll get my laptop out. I'll have a little game, She'll wake up. What are you doing? Just looking at some porn? She hates it that much. It's horrible.
For me now, how my team is doing and the story of my team is affecting thousands and thousands of people's days and like how they're in something that they're also emotionally invested in. So just like it amplifies everything.
Do you feel any pressure with that?
No.
You don't.
No, you don't. Like you don't really think about it in that way. You're not like, oh, yeah, I can't lose this game, or Johnny's gonna have a really can we curse on this, or do we just I don't know.
Go for it. It's fine.
Yeah, like Johnny's gonna have a really shitty day if I lose this game. Like you it's like a black box. You know it's happening when you feed all of this stuff into it, and there are a bunch of people there, but you don't. I was a history major. I love history, so we're going to just drop a quote that kind of relates. Stalin said, "One death is a tragedy, and a million deaths is a statistic." That is a horrible quote, but it also applies to the fact that when you have a lot of stories that blend together, you just as a human being can't keep track of it anymore,
Yep.
and you lose the individual importance of it. I think the same happens with streaming, right? So if I meet one person at TwitchCon and they tell me their story, I'm like, oh my God, but when it happens 100 times, then you go, well, okay, like now I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to have for lunch. And I don't, it doesn't really, it doesn't hold the same effect when it gets magnified in mass.
And so when you say magnified in mass, so do you get people then that tell you how emotionally invested they are in your streams and in your saves and all this kind of stuff? I'm guessing, like, have you had people that have said, I don't know, that the work that you're doing is making them feel better, or have you had trolls that are giving you grief around all this kind of stuff? Like, how does your audience interact with you around, I guess, the positive and then negatives that we've been talking around?
So there's two parts to like any piece of content that is consumed, I think, and this goes anywhere from like a song to a TV show where you make it, or in a stream you do it, or a YouTube video, you put it together and then you send it out, and it has its value to you, and then it gets received and gets assigned importance by different people in different ways, right? Like when Taylor Swift made her song, she had no idea what effect it was going to have on these other people. Like, how does my community interact with me around the saves? I mean, each person has their own experience, and some people really want to tell you about their save because they just want to share the awesome story that they had with some person, or all the way to the other extreme where somebody used to watch the streams with their son gets murdered, and now all of a sudden the streams are like their window and their way to get in touch with their son and feel like everything's okay again. And you're like, okay, that's just stupid intense. It has nothing to do with the fact that I'm sitting here in boxers yelling at a guy that doesn't exist because he missed a wide open chance because I think it's funny, right? Yeah. But that stupid little thing that I'm doing, that I'm not even thinking about the fact that this guy's over here crying because this is, oh, my son would have loved this, right? Like, it's insane. It feels insane when you're the person in the chair, you're the man in front of the mirror, the importance that can be assigned onto stuff that you produce. But you just, that's just what happens.
Well, I once went to a friend's wedding and snuck off from the wedding to hide in the hotel room to load the laptop up to finish off transfer deadline day. That's what I did. Knew exactly how the wedding was going to go. Did I know if he was going to sign? I've got no idea,
Right, and I think it's important when you're in that situation to understand that you also do that with other content, right? Like the show The Office, the US version of The Office, gets me in touch with a very particular time of my life where that show is on TV in my living quarters for every day for 2 years, and it brings me back there immediately when that show is on. And it's just different certain songs. Drops of Jupiter makes me think of my high school girlfriend because we listened to it in the car one time, right? And whoever made Drops of Jupiter, that's not what they're thinking of, right? But it will evoke a very specific set of mental reactions for me if I hear that song. And so there's no one way that people interact with it, and just by happenstance it becomes really important to certain people. The more people you reach, the more stories there are.
A huge thank you to Zealand for giving up his time and being so honest with his thoughts and feelings around becoming a YouTuber and some of the steps he's taken. If you would like to find out more about Zealand, he is on Twitter at the Old Zealand. That's at the Old Zealand. You can also get him on youtube.com/C/Zealand on YT. But if you go to his Twitter page, you can find all of the links there. Likewise, if any of the stuff we've discussed in this episode has kind of sparked any thoughts in your own thinking around burnout and streaming, we have more resources on our website, www.gamersversusdepression.org. That's www.gamersversusdepression.org. And next episode will be out shortly. Thanks very much.